Good afternoon. This is Mike Farley, Poolside Perspective Podcast, and we have a lot of fun coming tonight. So for you that are really, really into the ocean, we've got something that's coming, and it's not a mermaid. Okay, so we already did that. Elle's been here, but this is different. Okay, and you'll have to, check this out because it'll be a lot of fun. And we've got a lot of response from our true crime episode last time, and we are going to have a true crime segment now in every episode. So you'll have to stay tuned for the true crime that's coming up. It's going to be worthy.
Yeah, it'll be spooky.
Spooky. So this is the spooky month.
It is. Does this air maybe in October? No.
Would this air in October? No, not quite. We're
getting to the spooky month.
We're getting to the spooky month. So it's been
weather's cooling down.
Yeah.
Feeling a little better. I'm excited.
It's going to be a fun one. So if you've got episodes that you would like to know about with true crimes, make sure you send those in because I got a few this week. So we're going to add to the list. And someone sent in that they wanted information on a speaker and regarding indoor pools. So I'm trying to line that up. I think I may have somebody. So that'll probably be coming in about a month. But anyway. So should we jump into what we're going to talk about today?
I think that's the best option, yeah.
Well, so I personally have never experienced this, although I understand if you go on a cruise ship, this is something you really want to check out.
Yeah, I've never been on a cruise, so I haven't checked it out. I actually gone to a putt-putt place where they had something like this nearby, but I haven't done it myself.
So we're going to talk to FlowRider.
Yeah.
It's not like Easy Rider.
No, it's a nice little flow.
So FlowRider is about surfing. So we're going to check out and talk to the individuals about this. It'll be really interesting and how this might work. And actually, where you went in Grandscapes,
yeah,
they have one there.
Oh, really?
That is one of theirs.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So we're going to have to check it out and send you
for sure.
a field trip.
Yeah.
So,
a field trip. Yeah. A little experiment. Yeah.
Well, then right around the corner, they have the World Springs where they have all the different hot springs from all around the world.
When Grandscapes. Oh, okay.
So there's all kinds of cool things we're going to have to check out over there. So anyway, maybe we'll have some fun video coming out shortly of Trey surfing. So anyway.
Well, attempting to surf is probably the key word, key phrase.
I'm sure you'll do better than snowboarding.
I did fine snowboarding. It wasn't. I got a hold of it. I could get from the top to the bottom.
Yeah. So make sure you don't lose your surfboard.
Yeah.
We have Andy with us from FlowRider today, and thank you for being here. And we're really looking forward to talking to you about your product. So why don't you start and kind of give us the brief journey on how you ended up there?
I am Canadian. I grew up in a city called Winnipeg, Manitoba. If you're familiar with the Winnipeg Jets, that might be put the city on the map. But I went to university in Winnipeg and I graduated as a mechanical engineer. And I started my career in heavy industrial construction world. And then after about 5 years, I was speaking with a friend that I went to school with, and he worked for this water slide company. And so I was intrigued and looking for a change. And so he managed to get me an interview, and I got hired on with Whitewater West, based in Vancouver, Canada. And so I moved out to Vancouver. I was in Calgary at the time, and that was about 8 years ago. And I was working as a project manager, more specifically with the team here in San Diego, working on FlowRider projects, because Whitewater West had purchased FlowRider, the IP and the technology, about 12 years ago. So I was taking on all the FlowRider projects, and the company president down here, Marshall, he was always on my case to move down to San Diego. And it sounds like an easy decision, but it did take him some convincing, but I finally decided to move down here, and that was about 5 years ago. So I've been with FlowRider down here in San Diego for 5 years. And about 2 years ago, I moved from project manager. I got the opportunity to move into the sales role. So I have the fancy new title of VP of Business Development. But so I'm the designated salesperson for FlowRider. And so I haven't really looked back since. It's been a really great transition, and here we are.
So Whitewater West, is that correct?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So they do commercial slides?
Yeah, it's more so commercial. They may do work in the private sector, but typically it's larger scale projects, hotels and resorts,
Okay.
water park companies. There, as the company grew, they took on different aspects. They acquired a wave pool company and a water rides company, FlowRider. So we have a stationary wave division. They do the kids' play structures. And now they have a surf pool product called Endless Surf. So that's large scale dynamic wave system, with the propagating wave that moves through the water, similar to a wave pool, but catered through the software to be specific for surfing. So it's a pretty large group of products that's offered. And it's really the only company that can provide that selection in the world.
Awesome. So
FlowRider is born and raised in San Diego. The original inventor is a guy named Tom Lochtefeld, who's been in the stationary and now surf pool space for many years. The first FlowRider was made in 1991. So the inception was, in the 80s. And so it's been around for quite some time. It's gone through some changes over the years, but for the most part, the technology has changed, but the experience, the FlowRider sheet wave products anyways, are still pretty close to the same as they were back in the 90s. A lot of the changes we've made are in the name of safety, improving guests and riders' safety and experience. But it's a pretty long-standing product, and that's why the name brand in the niche space that it is, we're kind of like the Coca-Cola. And we've got the most waves out there by a pretty wide margin. And that's just due to the fact that we've been around for so long.
So I'm curious, because I'm looking at the website right now for FlowRider. So it looks like you have two main products, but then there's also a section that says more waves. So it says FlowRider and FlowSurf. Is that just the difference between indoors and outdoors, or is there more differences?
Good question. And I appreciate fresh perspective, because I think we look at this stuff so often, we kind of have it down pat. But so FlowRider, the range of products are what we'd call sheet waves. So the way the wave is produced is high velocity water projected through an aperture that creates a wave by the profile of the surface. Okay. So it's 3 inches approximately of water that you're riding on. So you require a bodyboard, or what we call a flow board. It's a specific board you use on a FlowRider attraction. The FlowSurf is a deep water wave. So still stationary, similar size footprint, a lot more water volume, because you're producing now a 4-foot wave, versus 3 or 4 inches. It's 3 or 4 feet deep, and you're riding a surfboard on it. So the ride experience is more akin to ocean surfing, much different experience than the FlowRider, but still similar size and price range, so to speak. And then the other FlowRider waves are just different variations of our sheet waves. So the naming convention was, the FlowRider single, the FlowRider double, the FlowRider triple. Those are all based on the number of pumps used in the attraction. And then you get the Flow barrel or the Flow curl. So the naming convention changed depending on the different products. I can't say there's necessarily a rhyme or reason, but that's the way we have it organized on the website.
Okay.
Where do most people find a FlowRider? If you wanted to experience it, let's talk about that first.
There are FlowRiders in all corners of the world. And so you will find them in different spaces, mainly being water parks. Hotels and resorts will have them in their water parks. Municipalities will have them in their aquatics facilities. And then, of course, there are the private buyers who will have them in their residence. And that's, I think, the conversation we're going to have here.
Right. So also you are on cruise ships a lot of times too?
Oh, yeah. How could I forget? So when we say cruise ships, it is at this point exclusively Royal Caribbean.
Okay.
So they are, again, by a wide margin, our sole largest repeat customer. They've got 27 FlowRiders amongst their different ships, some of which have 2. and they continue to have us refurbish them as they age. And so they've been a really awesome, consistent customer that provides us a lot of great marketing opportunities in their commercials that you may see during the Super Bowl or football games, NFL football games. So when we talk about cruise ships, we're really talking about Royal Caribbean.
Okay.
Before we go into the the residential area, I was just wondering, because I've never used one of these before. I'm a novice in skateboarding, a novice in snowboarding. I'm not really great at those, but I've done it. It's fun. I could stay up. So for someone that
can't.
yeah, for someone that would want to learn how to surf, is this like a great tool to try to put your toes into that area, or is it just completely different?
When we talk about the FlowSurf,
okay,
it is very translatable.
Okay.
The riding technique, the experience, the turns you're going to do, the board feel, the propulsion of the water is still coming at you, right? Whereas the surf wave is pushing you from behind. So it is still different. Don't get me wrong, but at least the turns and the tricks, aerials that there are, it will be similar to ocean surfing. The FlowRider attractions, the sheet waves, the board feel, any board balance or board feel will translate to some degree, but really the feel is not like surfing. Can be similar to snowboarding in deep snow. That feeling where you got to keep your nose up out of the deep powder.
Yeah.
That's a good way to relate it. We found that skateboarders who do flatland tricks, flip tricks, spin tricks, those are directly translatable to stand-up flow riding. And then we've also seen individuals who ride the FlowRider and get really good transition into wake surfing and do very well behind the boat. So, and also skimboarding. So there are other board sports that it's more akin to, but surfing, although a lot of our venues, and I say our venues, our clients' venues, will market a FlowRider like it's surfing, and there'll be imagery, and we try to be clear that it's not real surfing, and the experience is pretty different. But I think for our clients, a lot of their guests, that may be the closest thing that they experience to real ocean surfing. So from our perspective, we're okay with that. And since it's not a franchise, the commercial venues, we don't have a franchise agreement. It's really up to our clients to do with the attraction as they please. It's their decision how they want to market it. So you may get some messaging out there, and we may receive a lot of criticism that the FlowRider is, said to be real surfing. We don't see it that way. So we just try to be clear about it when we do have those conversations.
That makes sense. So you're not using a surfboard. That's the surf. So
yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
One of my worries would be to try one of these is when I fall, because I know I'm going to fall. Does it, the material for the FlowRider, is that really like painful to fall on, or it's a 3-inch of water? So I'm just trying to think.
You gotta go splat.
Yeah. Am I going splat?
You will go splat. It depends how you fall on how that feels.
Okay.
So when I talked about the evolution of the FlowRider products, the original waves were all, the substrate was concrete, right?
Ooh.
So it was concrete with padded foam. And we have what we call retro riders, or some really old waves that are still operating today that are still that makeup. So it's just a concrete kind of wave profile with a high density foam for padding and vinyl.
Okay.
And the falls on those are pretty aggressive. The Flow Barrel, which is a pretty iconic wave for us, that in order to achieve that barrel, that pipe, you had to have a hard steel substructure behind it. So that wave, combining the high velocity of the water, the actual barrel kind of picking up and spinning out, and the way it was made, the falls were pretty aggressive, and it's more of an expert's wave. Over the years, we discovered that tension vinyl was extensively better, clearly. So it's essentially like falling on a trampoline. So the attractions, the single, the double, those are the most common waves that you'll see. We built those the most. They have tension vinyl surface.
Okay.
And so just imagine falling on a trampoline. That's what it's similar to. Now, the falls are usually more awkward than just dropping on your back because the water's moving quickly, especially if you're a beginner and just starting to stand up. You're like Bambi out there. So it can be kind of awkward. But you do at the venue, operators are up to speed and are good at what they do. They'll teach you how to fall. You kind of curl up and land on your back as best you can. For the most part, it's fine, but people can get hurt. It's inherent. It's a sport,
Yep.
it's a skill set. And so if you fall awkward, often I think shoulder injuries, or like twisting something, that can be something that might happen. But we've worked to improve that further. So we found that even beyond the tension surface, inflatables have an even better fall attenuation. And on some of the Royal Caribbean rides, we've been working on using the tension surface with an inflatable mattress on top. And that even further improves the fall impact rating. So
Okay.
we found that the combination is the best. It's we're still working through different design elements, but for the most part, most of the attractions you have the tension surface. So that's what you can expect. And that's really been our sweet spot for a number of years.
That's good to know. And also, people get hurt all the time in track, and it's not even a contact sport. So if you're going into something like this, you have to imagine it's a possibility.
Yeah. And, we try to educate our clients and the staff at all these venues globally on preparing guests, have them really understand what they're going to embark on. It's not like going down a water slide or getting on a roller coaster. There is a skill set involved. So if you're not going to go hop on a skateboard at the skate park, maybe you want to reconsider doing stand-up. The bodyboard is super entry level. It's very forgiving. Anyone who is a first timer is going to start on their belly, and the potential for injury there's like close to none. So for little kids and those who are apprehensive, that's a great stepping stone. But then when you get into stand up, if the venue allows it, because some of which don't, it's just about making sure that they know what they're getting themselves into, and that it could be a lot of fun, but it's not something that they would do in a different aspect, then maybe they should reconsider.
So here in North Texas, we have a lot of lakes, and we have a lot of boating, and we have a lot of wakeboarding. And so you said that people that are comfortable with that, they'll be pretty comfortable with this as well.
Yeah, at least the spin tricks, behind the boat in competition, it's about spin tricks. And that's really like the building blocks for someone progressing in flowboarding now, spin tricks and then flip tricks eventually at the, higher levels.
I think the beauty of this, though, is you don't have to have a boat. You don't have to go to the lake. You don't have to go to the ocean to surf. There's so many capabilities of putting this in a backyard and just having fun.
We're going to take a break here for a second and get into outdoor living. So with outdoor living, we like to go to BBQ Bits here. We're going to share some information of everything that you may want to consider in your outdoor living space as far as features, especially for the kitchen. Hope you enjoy this. When I talk to some people about an outdoor kitchen, the most popular thing, or there's three components that most people think about. Something to cook on. I want a refrigerator. But the one thing they almost always forget about until I talk to them about it is trash.
Right.
Okay. Because they think, oh, there's going to be room underneath here to put a trash can. And there really isn't.
There's not.
And so there's different setups with trash cans. So and trash. So walk me through pros and cons.
So the most popular style is the trash recycle. You have your dedicated trash in front and then your recycled bottle in the back. Or if you have a large party, of course, you've got dual trash. They make a single trash. So if you're not that dirty, or if you don't have that many friends, then it's just one. Some companies will make the trash can to where it's called a narrow. It's turned sideways, and the width will allow you to specify in a smaller, maybe 6 to 8 foot island. But you're right. So to touch on this, some people think that you can put the trash in underneath. You can, but that's only for the cook. Let me show you here. So if I'm working with chicken or fish, then DCS makes a small dual trash for the cook. It's not really a bar type trash or volume holding trash unit like this is. This would be a quick trash solution for just the cook only. That's the personal attachment, or what we call the waste basket insert for DCS.
So what I tell people is, if you're not doing an outdoor sink, which costs a lot of money to get sewer and all that, you just want paper towels.
That's right.
And so with paper towels, you want a big trash can.
That's
so
right.
you can keep
Absolutely.
yourself clean.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, awesome. Any other tips with trash?
That's it.
Okay. Well, thank you for that information.
Okay.
So I hope you enjoyed the BBQ Bits that we just featured today, and we'll have more coming up next week. If there's something in particular that you're interested for, let us know, and we'll get back into the episode now. Okay, so Trey's brought it up. It's in the backyard. Okay, so how do we go about doing something like that? I know it's been done. So as someone that's like, I had a client the other day that they're like, we want the cool pool where everybody's going to come hang out. Okay.
Right.
And we want to offer all kinds of different things for that situation. So their son was like, yeah, I want surfing. So we're going to explore that. How do we go about exploring that possibility?
Right. Well, it starts with us. As far as I know, I feel like we're the only company in the space that has done residential installations. Now, I try to preface with inquiries, people that are asking about the backyard version, that we can do any wave you want in your yard. It's, really the limit is how much space in your budget, right? So, and we've done FlowRider doubles for private use in people's yards, but what we've marketed is the FlowRider Edge. That's probably what we'll talk about the most today. But that wave was designed more so to be just different, add a different element to the standard FlowRider single. And in turn, just the way the design, the way it looks, and it's the simplicity to some degree lent itself pretty well to the private buyer. So those two terms for us to some degree become synonymous. But for instance, we have a client in Utah. We're working on installing their FlowRider single as we speak. So it's really up to the client, their preference. It's not a very inexpensive toy. I think once you're considering you're in that price range, there's a few versions that are certainly doable. So
the Edge and the single are similar or the same, or?
Yeah, similar. So what's similar is the wave surface, like the riding area. They're both single pump attractions. So it's a similar ride experience for the guest. It's going to be the same wave profile. The difference at the Edge is there's no rear recovery. So on a FlowRider that you'll more than likely experience at a resort or water park, when you wipe out, you wash up onto the back and it's an elevated deck and all the water's draining back into the basin. And then you got to walk down on the walkway or go down the side back to the front. The Edge, you're going over the crest and then you're sliding back down into a pool.
Yep.
So for a homeowner who is looking to put this in their yard, the single and the double, they do look a little bit more commercial, industrious. You're going to have a big back wall at the back of the attraction that you need to face somewhere. It's going to block something or somebody's view if that matters. Whereas the Edge, you have the side walls, which are proud of the ground, X feet. But then you're sliding into a pool, which a lot of homeowners in this price range or category, or however you want to explain it, we have a pool anyways, or,
Sure.
want a pool in their yard, as you know. So it's more of an add-on, a very large add-on, but so it just marries a bit better. And there's just a little less infrastructure, a little less concrete. So it just made more sense to gear that towards the private buyer.
So you mentioned on the Edge, there's side walls. How tall are those side walls?
From the bottom of the tank to the top of the sidewall, so the highest point is 12 feet. Typically what a client will do is they will excavate and drop the basin portion where the the steel substructure and the pump is housed. They'll drop that all because that's around, the front wall's around 5 feet. So they'll excavate and drop the whole thing 4 to 5 feet into the ground. So you subtract that from 12, you're around 7 or 8 feet proud from the ground to the top of the sidewall.
Okay, perfect. That finished material that's on those sidewalls, that needs to be concrete?
We think it's EPDM or some kind of panels that it's stainless steel frame. So it's got like round tubing runs the top of it. And then it's got some structural uprights throughout it. And then we provide panels. One of our clients, the original Edge owner in Florida, he had some nice custom panels made that say, let's ride on the side. And so, I mean, it's really up to our clients, but we do provide some plain white paneling that kind of cleans it up a little bit.
Okay, cool. So you mentioned that there's a single pump that runs this.
Yes. All of our attractions use a similar pump, the Edge, the single, the double, it's all the same model. It's a 121 horsepower submersible impeller pump. It's designed originally for wastewater treatment. So it's about 4,000 pounds, like 6 feet long. It lies in the basin of the attraction, housed in the drivetrain. It's a stainless steel pump tube and intake and like big transition piece that ends up at the nozzle. And so it runs off 3-phase, 380 to 460 volt service. And it operates at 90 kilowatt hours. So if you wanted to know how much it's going to cost you to run it, that's what you would use times your local electrical rate.
Most people that are going to get this aren't probably worried about their electric bill.
Well, so we have found that 3-phase isn't common to the regular household, but typically the service is available. You would have to speak with your local electrical provider and they can then bring it to your home. Obviously, there's going to be some extra costs associated. The residents in Utah, getting that 3-phase service to their home was such a challenge that we ended up figuring out a way to do it on single phase. It just required a much higher amperage. So we had to change the VFD that we used to accommodate it. And so it's pending the commissioning, but we're pretty confident it's going to work. And the power company, we had many meetings with them and they're also confident in it. So there is an alternative. I don't have the exact numbers on that option, but standard is 3-phase.
So option coming soon.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So we've got a Edge. So are there standard dimensions on this size of the unit?
Yeah. So the footprint of the attraction where the wave is produced is standard, right? We have some minimum dimensions for what we'll call the landing pool, the place you're sliding into after. But the attraction itself is about 17, 18 feet wide. It's 43 feet long. And as I mentioned, it's about 12 feet tall. The other consideration is where you're going to house the electrical panel and the pneumatics panel. So since the FlowRider Edge, the riding surface and the sidewalls are all inflatable, we do have a pneumatics, we'll have a compressor and a regulator panel. So there's 3 other elements, the size of which I don't have off the top of my head, but other ancillary or auxiliary equipment that need to be considered, and can be stored outside. Part of the adaptations we've made to that supply for the Edge is outdoor rated auxiliary equipment, because we know that not all homeowners are interested in building a full-blown aquatics facility with electrical room and filtration room. So they need to keep this stuff outside to some degree. So that's an accommodation we built into what we provide for the Edge. But that is also another consideration where that stuff's going to live. It's got to be relatively close to where the attraction sits. just so you're not running a ton of cable somewhere or hose. So
when we were taking the water with this 120 horsepower pump,
yeah,
the water is being taken out of the landing pool and circulated back through. Is that how it works? So it's all one sanitation system?
It's all one sanitation system. So the pump, the attraction, what's underneath the wave, that shares the same body of water as what's in the pool. So there is a grating that prevents anything from getting underneath the attraction, although the suction is pretty minimal. And we had done the math quite some time ago. And it seemed to pass any, pool suction codes at the time. So there isn't really any concern of anything being sucked in there, but there is a partition that prevents that in any case. But the water is allowed to pass freely through. And so it would be advantageous to have the same filtration system for the entire pool.
Okay. I'm going to start it up. I'm going to take water out of the pool. My water in transit, how much is it going to drop the water level in the pool?
That's a good question. I do know that the volume of the tank required, so you can't have this pump dry. We have a minimum water level that needs to be attained. So the size of the pool and the elevation of which, there is some calculations to be done. But anyway, the volume of the basin that the attraction sits in is around 17,000 gallons. And then whatever size of the rest of the pool is going to add to that. So I think in a FlowRider, the water level drops a few inches once you turn it on, because a lot of that is what's being projected over the surface. So it's probably somewhere in the same vicinity for the edge.
Okay. So what we have is we have a tank that this pump sits in that's 17,000 gallons, that's what it draws from. And then it draws from to fill the tank, it's drawn from the main pool. So this is a vanishing edge pool in reverse.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So when you turn the attraction off, the water, you have to imagine that the water is going to sit still submerging the pump and the drop once you turn the attraction on. So there's a little bit of flux in there between where the surface sits, the nozzle, and then the pump in the bottom. Oh. And that's accommodated in the pool as well. So it's all, one.
That makes 100%
water. I'm wondering, how loud is this thing? Like, am I hearing just running water, or am I hearing the actual pump itself?
It's a combination. So at one point we did do a noise study on a FlowRider single. The noise created is anywhere from 55 to 85 decibels. It's the loudest when you're standing right at the nozzle deck. So that's the rushing water, the combination of the pump running. But once you step off that, you can have a pretty easy face-to-face conversation, even a few feet off the front of the attraction. It dissipates pretty quickly. But when you're standing right at the nozzle deck, you're pretty much yelling at somebody. Like you're having a, outside voice conversation.
Is up there.
Yeah. And that's where the pretty much the ramp from the actual structure meets the new pool right there. Or are you talking the back?
When I say the nozzle, that's what we'll call the front of the wave. That's where the water's exiting, being shot out from.
I gotcha.
At the back of the wave, it'll be considerably less, but there is the sound of the water falling is the main noise level.
We're going to be going through a little segment we call Design Concepts. We are going to be talking about sun shelves later on in the episode. So I was just wondering, is there any jobs that pop into your head that you would just want to walk us through, the concept of why you did what on that design?
As you go out to a pool, the first thing I think most people want to experience is to get the shallow water of the pool. It's the first place they want to hang out. That's where they enter into the pool. And so for most of the time as we go out, that's going to be your entry point. Now, one thing that I have a tendency to do is I have a tendency to put my shelves and benches off to the sides.
Okay.
And the reason I want to push those off to the sides is because I want to give capability for people sometimes want to swim back and forth. And if you put them on an end, that makes it really difficult to do that. Or if you're trying to play water basketball or you're trying to play volleyball. If they're over to the side out of the play of the activity, it gives you a better functional pool. So this one particular pool was all about angles. And so one of the things we were trying to do is give the illusion of as much space in the yard as possible. So we actually lined the pool up instead of most people put it, perpendicular to the house. And now and then we'll actually run it where it's parallel to the house. Those are usually the two things. I do a lot of the perpendiculars because it gives you a long line of sight and depth. But this one we actually angled in the yard. And the reason we angled it in the yard is they wanted a really good view and a really long view from the longest line of sight, which was from the master bedroom and from the living room. So this pool angles through the yard. And so in the very back corner of the yard is where the cabana is. And then you transition through the middle of the yard where the pool is. And then up closer to the house is the ledge and the spa itself. But everything plays off that angle and drawing your eye back. So in the cabana, there's a built-in fireplace along the lines of sight going out there. You look down the whole length of the pool. There's a fire bar at night along with a water feature that parallels that. There's some water features at the end of the pool. Plus, this was a hillside. So we had all these different levels as we stepped down. So the cabana was actually sunken as you went out into the space down. But, a lot of times we do a swim up bar or something like that there. They didn't want a swim up bar. They wanted basically some seating down at the, and so we used the end of the pool to do a really cool built-in bench situation. So you could sit there and you could look into the cabana and enjoy the fireplace. And also there was some cooking space down there. But off to the side, again, with this ledge, the spa was off to the side, so it didn't block the views as you were looking down through the pool. And then there was a water feature and a fire feature off to the side as well. So there are all these things that were playing off this line of sight that goes to the far back corner, because one of the things they also wanted in this particular project is they wanted a lot of landscaping. So their goal was in 5 years that you could go into the backyard and you couldn't see any of the neighbors. The challenge is in this subdivision is they didn't allow any wooden fencing. Everything was iron. So you could look into your neighbor's yard and your neighbor's yard and across the way's yard, and everybody, there wasn't a lot of privacy. And so one of the reasons we put the cabana back there also is it blocked the view from several homes that were back there looking into their yard space. And then we used key plantings all around the pool in the grass area to create basically a perimeter border that was a really lush type situation. So they felt like they were, in a tropical Southern California environment, which they had come from. And they really enjoyed that, kind of setting. So we used a lot of really dark colors and some really light colors to offer some contrast on the pool. We also wanted to bring the landscaping in. So this was a project that we used a lot of synthetic grass incorporated with the decking, which looked really good. The other thing is, as a focal point, as you looked out, the spa was a perimeter overflow spa. So because everything was really open and the planting was all on the perimeter, you got some real good reflections off the top of the spa with the sunset and that type of thing. So it looked really cool from a visual standpoint. And this whole house and the setting was very a modern feel to it, very asymmetrical feel to it, but also trying to pull in a lot of organic feel as well. But the organic feel was with the plantings. So it was a real fun project. The ledge had something to do with it, but there were all kinds of layers of different things to make this fit into the hillside. So, at the initial levels, spa was raised up 18, but then you step down. The fire pit then was 30 inches tall, which is basically the height of a tabletop.
And it's a line burner.
Yeah, it's a real long. So that's a little bit different. Most fire pits are lower. This one's basically tabletop height. But on the opposite side of it, in the pool, it was a water wall. So it gave a really cool sound when you were sitting out there as well. And then, we also used a lot of angles on the project. There was a lot of staggered steps and staggered walls and that type of thing, which gave it a real geometric look to it, which was a lot of fun. One thing also in the cabana is we wanted to create some privacy. And so we set it up where there was a wall that was up 6 feet high. So, they couldn't see you and you couldn't see out, but then we left it open where the fireplace wasn't. So it would allow some air movement through there and, make it a little bit cooler in the summertime. Plus it was also a kind of a cool look. We put some cool landscaping back behind it and highlighted that with some lighting. So it was a fun project. And I really like to go back because it's been, like I said, 5 years now. And the goal was to make it look where you couldn't see any of the neighbors after 5 years. And so it'd be kind of fun to go back and photograph that one again.
Yeah, I really like the reflection of the line burner on the spa.
Yeah.
So it's really, the spa is very reflective. And having everything so spread out, it just works so well with the reflection.
But so just a different situation. If you want to check it out on YouTube, the YouTube videos, the Adams Family Pool Construction Time Lapse.
Yep.
Has the construction of the whole project, and then at the very end has the final pictures of it as well. So that's something you may want to check out. We're going to put this in, and is there construction? So we have a certain electrical thing. We have to build a basin to put this in conjunction with this. So we're building basically 2 pools, one for the FlowRider and one for our. So is the pool that I'm going into, does it have to be a certain depth or length of glide path, or
certain. We would say probably 4 or 5 and 4.5 feet at least deep. You don't want it too shallow. You have to imagine that people are going to be sliding in potentially backwards head first. So you want there to be enough water there that, there's low likelihood of them hitting the bottom. I know that there's some standards for water slides that are water entry, so it would be similar to that. I think it's 4.5 feet or something.
That's 4.5 feet.
And when you said the comment about building 2 pools, like it is essentially the same piece of concrete or gunite or whatever you want to call it.
Exactly.
The only difference would be that the finish for the attraction needs to be treated watertight, but we wanted bare concrete where there may be some element parts where we have to adhere foam and vinyl on the outside, but there doesn't need to be any finish. What the client wants to do in the swimming portion, it's entirely up to them. But that would be the main difference is just like a really kind of basic rudimentary pool tank and then an actual, finished touch swimming pool.
Okay. From a use standpoint is when you have it's a single pump, I'm assuming one person's riding it at that time.
Yeah, our operations and procedures manual would say one person at a time.
Okay.
What our private users do,
I
can't speak to it, but I'm sure there's been deviations from the rule. But yeah, that's how we specify using it in a commercial setting. I mean, on a single, we would probably be okay with a competent operator being on the wave at the same time as a guest. Okay. Like that would be fine. The major concern about too many people is that the wave has a limit, a capacity to which at some point it may collapse.
I do have a couple quick notes for you guys, if that's okay.
Oh, sure.
He used the term collapsing. Wanted to clarify that was not structurally. That's just when the
water falls down. Yes,
exactly. Coming back down.
Okay. So we're setting this structure up. So how long does it take to construct and what has to be there when you show up?
Yeah. Okay. So I'll take it a step back. Our company designs the wave, right? Product to product, it's pretty much off the shelf. We can make some alterations, but for the wave to function, typically it's got to be this dimension, this size, depth, all those things. So we have the specifications, the drawing sets for each version. They need a company to create the construction drawings for permitting and for the build with our specifications, right? So they need to hire at least one other contractor. It's usually a pool contractor, and have them actually build this concrete tank pool. In turn, they would also design the filtration for it. We don't design filtration. We're not a pool company. So typically that same company will design the filtration system, supply that, and potentially, if they're capable, they'll handle the electrical scope as well. But in the case they can't, the client would also need to have typically a local electrical company do the design if whatever's required for routing cable and pulling wire and bringing in main power to the electrical panel. Basically all electrical scope. We don't have any, Red Seal electricians or electricians on staff. We just have our installers who are familiar with building FlowRiders. They will be on site for our portion of the installation. But back to your question, we need the tank built. We need, ideally filtration is already done. It doesn't need to be, but ideally it is. Any other infrastructure required for our auxiliary equipment that will be delivered to site, and then putting that into place, that all needs to be buttoned up when we show up with our materials and we start putting in all the steel, the pump, and then in turn the surface and everything else.
So would the pool have to have the interior finish done and water in the pool when you start?
No, we need the
shell
tank dry, right? So before we put the steel in or the pump, we need it dry and clean, right? And once that's put in, then that's when you would probably do your Pebble Tech or whatever it is that they want to do for the pool finish. And then because at that point they could fill it. So once we're in and everything's ready, then they can fill it. And then we would have, for the edge anyway, once it's filled, then we would do the surface probably last. So it might be a couple, 2-phase process. The single is a bit simpler, but yeah, we would, it needs to be dry and clean, and then we do our install and then it.
So it's filled. How many days, weeks after that is it completed?
Once it's filled with water, a few days. So we do need heavy equipment, moving the surface in. It's a pretty big piece. It's, you could, with enough people, you could hand bomb it, but heavy equipment would be needed to at least move the steel substructure and the pump in for sure. Ideally, an overhead crane. It can be done with a telehandler, like a extendable boom forklift, if need be. And then again, it's nice to have for the surface, and really that should only take, once everything else is done, probably a few days. The FlowRider Edge can be installed probably within 3 weeks, probably less. We would, if we were talking to a potential client, we would say at the most a month. But it's usually, a week or so quicker than that.
Okay.
I have a question for you. Wouldn't we need it to be finished with pebble sheen because that's waterproofing? Because technically gunite isn't waterproof.
Their tank wouldn't necessarily have to have a pebble finish. You just need a waterproof finish. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Our portion just needs to be watertight,
Okay.
so we're pretty comfortable. We've seen different applications. Usually there's some form of concrete additives that's done that, and in the joints that seals it all. Because in commercial settings, it's often form and pour. We don't really see gunite as much when, in other projects, but, we have seen it in the residential versions and it works fine. So
Okay.
I'm not a concrete expert. I'm just, we're easy. We try to be anyways.
No, yeah, for sure.
for all you true crime fans out there, we are going to explore pool true crime, and you guys will decide if this is a crime or not. So when you do a certain sport, you have to have certain equipment.
Yes, you do.
So the one thing that I've never really done much is golf.
Okay.
And you've played golf.
Yeah.
Okay. More than me. Definitely more than me.
A lot more. Yeah.
A lot more than me. So
Quite a bit.
it skipped a generation. So my dad was a golfer that used to win golf tournaments all the time. He was a caddy in New Jersey at a fairly well-known golf course where all these guys like Bing Crosby used to come and play golf and all that. Dean Martin.
Wow.
He's got all kinds of golf cards signed by all these famous guys that used to play.
So he played a lot more than me.
He played a lot more than you. So it was the thing he did without his child. So he never took me golfing. So I basically resent the sport. So I figured I'll start it when I retire.
Yeah, it's a peaceful time.
Which will probably never happen. So I'll probably never play.
Oh,
So
don't say that.
you have to have certain things. If you tried to play golf without a bag, would that be hilarious?
If someone you're playing with doesn't have clubs, yeah, you need clubs to play.
I say you have clubs, just not a bag.
Well, you need to put the clubs in something. Unless you're carrying just like one club with you,
Yeah.
like a cane, you could do that. Just have a good old 7-iron,
Okay.
but that's not ideal.
So someone without a bag to put their clubs in would be a real.
Yeah, well, you're
Yes.
gonna just zip tie it. It doesn't seem smart.
Yeah. So okay. Well, see, I'm speaking from never have played.
Yeah,
so
yeah. I got you.
So some other things that you probably need to have, like I see all those people wearing a glove.
Yeah, so if you want some
they-
good traction for driving or iron play, you'll need a glove. It helps.
It's not just to be Thriller like Michael Jackson.
No, it has its uses, and some people don't use a glove at all. To each own, but a lot of people do.
Okay. So they have those little white things, or no, they're
The
different.
tees?
Oh, the tees.
Yeah.
That's what they're called.
Yeah,
So,
that's necessary, especially if you're driving. If you're playing a 18 hole where you're driving quite a bit, you're gonna need some tees for sure. You could try to chip off the ground with like a 3-hole or something like that with irons, but trying to drive without a tee, it sounds very, very difficult.
Well, I thought you'd have to have a steering wheel to drive that golf cart.
No, a driver.
A driver.
Yeah, the big one,
Okay.
the big golf club.
Was that Big Bertha thing?
Yeah, it's the big one. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
that people talk about.
Big Bertha. Yeah.
Okay. Is there any other things that you should have? Otherwise, you'd be
Patience. For
patience.
sure, yeah. But it all varies depending on the weather and what you're doing exactly.
So it would be a crime if someone showed up without a bag, without tees, without
You
a
need
glove,
clubs, yeah.
and clubs. Okay, and tried to play golf.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is kind of the same thing with what I'm talking about. So is
Okay.
it a crime not to have a tanning ledge properly accessorized? Order.
What do you mean by that? So, can you elaborate?
Okay. So, first of all, there's people, I think it's definitely a true crime if you're not offered a ledge. at the
Yeah.
first-
So we're just talking about the tanning ledge, but also people call it a Baja shelf. There's many names for this space in the pool.
Shamu shelf.
Yeah.
I mean, people have called it a lot of different names over the year. We talked about Shamu
Yeah,
shelf.
I
in
know,
the
I get
past
that one now.
episode. So, yeah. So, anyway, if you don't get that one in my embarrassing situations, go back and listen to episodes about that. So, it's a very popular space, but there's a lot of people that when you go out and talk to them, they didn't get offered certain things.
Okay.
So the first thing that I think is really important to be offered when you have a shelf like that is it needs to be the right size.
Oh, 100%.
So there's sometimes people come out and they've got, I got a shelf and it's 5 feet. And it's like, well, that's great. Your chair's 6.
Just a big old step, pretty much, if it's 5 feet.
Yeah. Well, actually, I think that
You
there
can
are
do smaller
chairs
stuff.
that are smaller than that, but they're upright. So,
But that
I-
ties into, you need to know what furniture you're going to put on that.
well, yeah, you need to discuss. Are you sitting upright? Like you're in an Adirondack chair, lean back, like, hey, I'm reading my paper here. This is cool.
Yeah.
Are you laying down or are you in the water? I mean, there's chairs, they're different sizes. You got to have the right size.
Yeah, some people might go and design a pool but not know what furniture they're going to buy after the fact, which could play a part. And might be people like me that honestly like that space open. So it just varies. And there's also other things I'm sure you're going to get into.
Sure. So the next thing, so proper size, I think
Yeah.
is very important. The second thing is an umbrella sleeve.
That place can get really hot. And if you're just sitting there watching the kids, grandma loves that space. I like that space. Sisters love that space. Everyone loves that space. The dogs like the space. So
So, but everybody doesn't want to be in the sun in the water.
Yeah, they don't want to be beaten hot. No.
Yeah, so it's not the 80s now and Baywatch and everybody's out cooking in the sun on the beach.
Yeah. And we're in Texas, so the sun can get pretty strong.
Yeah. So, yeah, in certain areas, maybe that's not an important thing, but in the Sun Belt, it's really important to have the option of shade because usually one of the spouses wants to sit there in the shade.
Yeah. And then the aftermarket, you could get a umbrella that goes in this big weighted area, then you have to drag across the deck and you get water stains from it. It's just, if you plan ahead, I think it's just a better option.
Okay. So the next thing is notoriously to me in a ledge, you're going to get algae.
Yes.
And
Yeah. It's the most stagnant spot if it's not. Yeah.
and the water's shallow,
Exactly. It's higher up.
heats up fast.
Yeah. The water tends to up there, not return.
You know, so depending on how great your circulation is in that space.
Big
So
factor.
what happens then is you get the water heated up, gets algae. So a simple thing to help move the water in that space would be a good circulation system, which that's another episode.
Which our pools don't typically get algae there. Just stating that.
So the other thing is you put a gusher or a bubbler there.
Yeah.
So now you've got some water movement that helps with the algae aspect and it gives you some nice sound where
Oh, yeah.
everybody's chilling, but it's not so loud that you can't talk to people when you're sitting there. So that's really nice.
It's probably, do you think it's the cheapest way to get a good sound?
Oh, it's one of the most cost-effective water features you can do.
I'd
Yeah.
imagine, yeah.
So the depending on, there's just the plain gusher or bubbler, but to me that's still a disservice to them as a someone purchasing a ledge.
Why so?
Well, because at night it's dark.
That's true. Night swimming.
Yeah, well, that's great if you got lights that you can see what's going on in the pool, but in the ledge is usually not deep enough. Now, those Baja shelves that they do out in California, they're lower, and so the light goes into them.
But still, if we're typically, and the shelf could be different. It could be just the shallow spot and then it drops off to the deep end. But a lot of the time, it's actually the first step into the pool. So you'll have that cascading stairway, which all those changes of directions is going to cause that light just not to reach up to that shelf.
Well, it's just the light set here.
Yeah.
And the ledge is here and light doesn't go uphill.
Yeah.
And climb up in that space. Nope. So it's all in a shadow. So if you do an LED gusher, now you've got light and sound. So sounds like a lot of fun.
Oh yeah. It's a lot. I would just imagine, if you're a homeowner and you're trying to purchase something at night, it's a lot more friendly, alluring to walk into a pool where your first step, if this is the case, your first step is the shelf. It's lit up versus dark.
Yeah. So we've got, is it a crime? Okay. So is it a crime not to be offered a ledge? I'm a brand new person. I'm buying a pool for the first time. I'm in Texas. It's hot. I haven't gone through and experienced a lot of pools. I don't ask for one. You don't give me one. Is that a crime?
I believe so. There's other options too, like a beach entry. So you could tie in a lot of stuff into this.
Okay. Yeah, that's true. So second thing is, okay, you didn't give me one, but you gave me one and it's too small. You didn't talk to me about my usage of the space. I'm going to have my 4 sister-in-laws all hanging out here and you gave me a 4x4 area that they don't fit.
No.
Not talking about the size. Is that a crime?
I believe so.
Okay. So the third thing is you didn't give me an umbrella sleeve. Is that a crime?
Yeah.
I think it depends on where you're located.
It's not as much as a crime as the last one. You could add it in, but it's a little.
Well, and it depends on
tricky.
where you're at. So, in the Sun Belt, I'd say yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't get a gusher on my ledge. Is that a crime?
It just depends on the client. If they didn't know it was an option.
Well, maybe they like green pools.
Well, seafoam green, there you go.
You got it.
That's a good plaster choice for you.
And then last but least, is it lighted up for me so I can enjoy at night?
Yeah.
So I think those are a lot of things to think about. So, you want to get a space, you want to get it right, you want to know all the options that you can have. If you aren't giving those options, I think that's a crime.
I think this also ties into when you have a designer and you're filling out a designer, there's things I've heard called order takers, where they listen to exactly what you say, and that's all they give you. They don't expand your knowledge. They don't, even though, you know, some stuff might not be affordable, you want to know the options.
Very true. So if you got an order taker and you've listened to this video, you know what to order.
That's
But
true.
if you don't, then you'll probably experience a crime. Hopefully not.
SOL.
So anyway, we'll be exploring some other crimes. Send in your thoughts and processes, and we'll experience all these together and help solve the mystery of the pool, bad juju stuff, and we'll have good pools.
Oh, yeah. It's all about good pools.
We're looking at working on this type of thing. Where in the process do we reach out to you and start gathering information about, okay, we've got this design concept that we're putting together, and we've got the space that we need, the 43 by 18, and we want to know, how do we figure out what the cost is? Is that when we can figure out the cost of what a project would be?
Yeah, a lot of it's going to be in your hands. We're more than happy to work with, we call them specifiers or designers, you know, pool companies. If you need information, we can provide you drawing files so you can get concrete amount and sizing and whatever else. We can provide you specifications on the electrical and whatever else you need to know, water, so that you can start pricing out all the external stuff that we don't provide. And so I do a lot of that just out of good faith and support in the chance that it does result in a sale. And in some instances, the client prefers to deal with one company, so they want it, you know, turnkey, so to speak. So we have sold to a pool company before, and they take our sale price, which we would typically communicate with the client. You know, depending on the situation, I may be talking to the client, not knowing that they've also had a pool company that's speaking to me, and I'm not putting it together quite yet that they're, you know, from the same project potentially. So we're very open with our pricing. And so we would be communicating the same message. But a client is more than welcome to structure the deal how they want. Ideally for us, we want to sign the deal with the client directly. There's some terms and line items in there that speak to operations. So if the pool company has nothing to do with the attraction once it's been built and commissioned, we would need whoever's going to be running it, the owner, or in this case, the same person, to sign some portion of this agreement. So it's usually simpler if we work through them, but we're more than happy to sell to a pool company, and then in turn, they can do an all-in pricing on the entire installation. And so it's, you know, again, we try to be accommodating and flexible, but we understand that companies like yourself need info before anything's ever signed. And so we try to accommodate that so that you can provide pricing and our clients can get an accurate picture of what this thing's going to cost them. You know?
Okay. So what does it cost?
So the FlowRider Edge, there's two versions. That version with the rear recovery, it sells for $595,000. So I've talked a bit about the exclusions, the concrete, you know, the pool itself, the filtration, any contractor's scope of work, including electrical and the heavy equipment. None of that is included. So
Sure.
$595 was probably going to round out closer to $1 million or more. You know, you guys would be able to answer that better than I could for the FlowRider Edge standard version. Now, what was the original is now the upgraded version, because since it's entirely inflatable, we had a client who wanted it to collapse. So
Is this Rick Chafee?
well, yeah, it is. Yeah, Rick.
Okay.
His client. Yeah. So it's the version.
That's what I heard about, that it was totally collapsible. So I was like,
Yeah. So built into the pneumatic system is a vacuum suction option that allows you to reverse the flow and collapse this whole thing. And so if you want that version, landing pool requirements change quite a bit. We had learned from experience that you need in Rick's project, it's helping power the lazy river. So you get an idea of how strong this flow is. So there's a lazy river in this guy's yard. It's helping power that.
Right.
And so there's plenty of run out for people when they slide off the back, they can just mosey on down the river. But for, I think we're selling that version for $675. It allows it to collapse, which we have found residential buyers. There's typically one or I should say two or more opinions associated. And often one opinion feels it's a bit of an eyesore. So sometimes there's, the need or the want to have it disappear, so to speak. So, there are a few added elements to make that work. So that is the second option that we offer. But if space is a limiting factor, we can't do it because it's just, it's not safe to have a landing pool that's too small. So for the upgraded version, you need a, pretty large plot of real estate to make it work.
You need a big pool.
Yeah, big pool.
How big?
A long pool. Doesn't necessarily need to be, well, we would say at least 30 feet off the back of the attraction.
AY, is that specifically with the version with no recovery going down the backside?
Yeah, the one where it's entirely inflatable. At a minimum, it's got to be 30 feet from the back of the wave to the wall.
Right. And on the other version, what would that distance look like?
We would prefer somewhere between 20 to 25 feet. So still a decent amount. We're just erring on the side of caution. Probably 25 feet would be ideal. Since the wave is 43, you need like a 70-foot at least long stretch.
That's doable in a lot of yards, but some yards, not so much. So, okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. So this material that we're inflating or, what's the life expectancy of it?
Well, it depends on the environment.
Certainly.
So the one in Arizona, Rick's project, it's, it's just baking in the sun. So we highly recommend if the client has it in their ability and budget to build some form of shade structure. There's another residence in Arizona that's done just that. So, the inflatables will last, 5 years, so to speak. But if they're getting beat down by, the hot Arizona sun, probably less, they're going to fade at the minimum. So that, nice blue, we've started leaning towards making them in a very, it's like a white blue tint because the surface temperature is like considerably 20 degrees or something less with the lighter color. So the FlowRider blue doesn't fare as well when it's just getting baked in the sun. And in the inflatable material, the technology we use is called drop stitch, but it's an inflatable stand-up paddleboard. That's essentially how it feels and looks. So if you left a board out in the sun for, 24 hours, day in, day out, it tends to degrade the material over time. But we would say you're probably replacing inflatable elements in the 3 to 5 year range. Not all of them. So what gives the wave its main structure is what we call a kicker. So it's like a wedge shaped piece that sits underneath. So those will last, 7 or 8 years probably. I mean, but the sidewalls get really beat on. The ride surface, if you're running it a lot, the water helps keep it cool. So, but then if it's indoors, you're probably in the 8 to 10 year range. There's going to be repairs, they do spring leaks over time. So, you'll have to be familiar with patching it, or you have us, come out and fix it, or you have a pool contractor, or a pool service company that's taking care of maintenance. So, like anything, it wears out, but yeah.
You mentioned indoors. So these are a lot of indoor water parks, or have you ever done them in a residential indoor situation?
Over the years, we've done FlowRiders for the Sheikh of Abu Dhabi. The residential version is not new. We've really started targeted marketing for the residential version when the Edge came about. So it was around 2019. But we've done ones indoors. There is a private owner that we, requested we don't talk a lot about, but they've got a FlowRider double indoors. The client in Utah who is more than happy once it's commissioned and his project's done to host us, and we're going to get a lot of great content on that wave. He's putting his in a pool house in indoors. So if weather dictates, if you have seasons, you probably want to put it inside. So you need
Great
an HVAC
ventilation
system that can accommodate,
Yeah.
right? So you're turning it into an aquatic space. So you'll need some, unless the interior is designed in such that it can withstand a lot of chlorinated moist water in the air. It won't just disintegrate, it's something you need to consider. So we help advise and plan with our clients that want to put FlowRiders indoors. Like, I think it's like 30 or 40% of the waves we have out there are indoors. A lot of them are indoor water parks. A majority are outside because it's easier to do. So, but if you want to use it year round, it needs to be in a climate that can accommodate that. So we stick built on site. So we have all this stuff delivered to wherever the project is located. And then we have our installers who are located globally. We got guys in Australia, in the UK, in the Middle East. Most of the guys are based out of the US. So depending on where the location is, we have our guys on site and all the materials. So it's built on site by hand. Long answer to a short question.
So does this require a large staging area to put together?
Not really. I mean, if you think about it, all those materials eventually fit inside the footprint of the attraction. But when the recoveries show up there and they're in crates, I would probably say you take the footprint of the attraction and 2x that. That's probably the laydown you're going to need for all the materials. So for a FlowRider double, for instance, you're going to have one 40-foot high cube ocean container, which is kind of like the standard container you see on the back of a semi truck, full of steel. And then you're going to have another one of those with the recovery materials, all the upholstery materials we use, the foam and vinyl for the walls. And then the panel and the pumps will all fit in another container. And then there may be one smaller shipment. So that kind of gives you a rough size estimate if you have any idea, like what that would look like in real life. The Edge will be less than that, one less pump, a lot less steel. So maybe just one 40-foot container. So if it's at a homeowner's residence, we would plan our installation just like we're doing in Utah at the moment, so that we would have our team on site when the steel gets there. And instead of it all sitting around, we're ideally going right from the truck and setting as much as we can in place, the pump, timing that so it's not really sitting on site. Don't get me wrong, I make it sound simple. It's often more challenging than that for whatever reason, but that's ideal. And so for a private owner, staging can be a challenge. So we would, we're open to working out different scenarios, finding place to keep stuff. But for the pump, and if the pump has to arrive before time, it'll fit in a driveway. You know what I mean? It's like a vehicle essentially. And then when the steel gets there, we put it in. So it doesn't have to be a ton of space.
Okay. Well, it's just logistics to all the things you have to put together to make all this fun happen.
Oh yeah. I'm curious, have you ever put a FlowSurf outdoors there? Because everything I see on the website, it's all indoors, and I'm just wondering if anyone's done it recreational as well, or residential as well.
On the website, the FlowSurf in-ground version, the reason you only see it indoors is because there is only one. So if we want to talk about that product, I'll just do a quick. We designed a couple different versions of the FlowSurf, and we took one to market over 2 years ago. And in the time frame of working on making our first sale, we were approached by a French company who had a much more efficient design and 3 different versions already existing and operating in France. And they came to us to forge a partnership because they didn't want to market or sell these attractions. They just wanted to design them. And really their parent company had no interest in the endeavor altogether. But anyway, so there are 3 in existence, 2 of which are outdoors. One is a floating version, so it's at a cable park in France. Okay. But what you're probably seeing is the one in Lyon. It's called City Surf Park, and it was the first of. We've made some design changes with the company's called Hydro Stadium, so we've worked with them to add some of our design elements. And so we've got in construction 2 right now, a third to be later this year. There's going to be another one next year. So like we've got some pipeline built up finally with this version. So there will be ones outdoors in the future. So again, a longer answer than.
No, you're good. What is rough ballpark? What kind of number is on one of those jobs?
The FlowSurf is scalable, right? So the standard version is 10 meters wide or 30 feet approximately. Okay. It's a 5 pump attraction. Anything less than 10 meters, we find detracts from the ride experience. So you can go wider, 2 meters at a time, 6 feet at a time. You add a pump each time. So the 10 meter is selling for $1.95 million. It's bigger. It's about 70 some feet long. Again, 30 some feet wide at a minimum. So more water, more concrete, larger filtration system. And it's around the $2 million benchmark as a sale from us. So it, like I said, somebody could afford, like I said, the world's your oyster from private to commercial. You could build a FlowSurf in your yard. It's just, we're talking considerably more bank for that version.
Okay.
I've ridden that one in France, and I've ridden Petter's Waves, and it's fun. It's different. I mean, I love flowboarding. It's hard. Flowboarding is hard. I'll give it that much. It's taking me some time to get competent. So when you watch, we host an event called the Flow Tour. Now anywhere from 4 or 5 different, maybe 6 events a year. We partner with clients that want to host one of the contests. And you watch some of the pros and they make it look so simple. I get out there when I meet clients at a wave, I think I'm at the point where I can at least, I get out there, I can, make some turns and get out before I make a fool of myself. But it's tough. I would say that the FlowSurf product, it's a little bit easier from the get-go for a beginner, even though it is, still a challenge. But the progression, I think, is, kind of plateaus a bit from a trick perspective. Whereas the FlowRider, it seems like there's still new tricks being invented every year at these contests. So there's guys really pushing the limits. And from what I've seen in the deep water wave world, that is growing. There are our competitors have, some venues out there. And so there's a community building behind that, sport as well. I don't know if the ceiling is as high for what you can do on those waves, but I would say that the barrier to entry from a skill perspective is a little lower because you start on your feet no matter what. There isn't really a bodyboarding option on the deep water wave. I mean, some guys who are really good can, but just the way the wave works, you got a lot of your body exposed on the bodyboard that's dragging in the wave. It makes it pretty hard to ride a bodyboard on it. So everybody's starting on their feet on the FlowSurf product. So you're kind of like getting used to that right from the start.
So what are we not talking about that we should discuss? For the residential homeowner that's like, hey, this is interesting, I want to explore this. What are other questions they might have?
Yeah. I mean, from my perspective, there's always a bit of education. This whole conversation I have these regularly. And unfortunately, and I think that's the most important part for a potential buyer, is that unfortunately we don't provide a one-stop shop. We're trying to be clear about it. The main reason being, it's going to be less expensive overall if our clients can source local companies to do the other work with our help than it would be for us to subcontract or try to do it ourselves. So that's the logic behind it. Although it does make it a little more challenging for our clients. There's some more homework involved. We do think it's ultimately in their best interest. And so that for me is what I want people, to understand. And so, yeah, it takes my time, but it is what it is. So, we just try to do our best to educate people who are interested in this and really what all needs to be done in order to make it happen. And some people are all about it and others are not, so we have a lot of companies that we work with that have worked on FlowRiders in the past. So we've got a decent, list of referrals that we can point people in the direction of to really make it simple as it can be. Design companies, pool companies, that can work countrywide. And yeah, so I think we've covered most of it.
If someone wanted to reach out and contact you, what's the easiest way to do that?
You can go to our website. Our website has at multiple pages within it. There are different options to submit an inquiry. Those all come directly to me. I'm more than happy to give my contact information. Andy@FlowRider.com is an easy way to get a hold of me. We work really closely with our clients, and I think anybody who's put one in their yard over the last 5 years will be more than happy to attest to the service that they got and the relationship that we have with them. And another long answer.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate your long answers.
Yeah, very much.
We're all about giving people information.
Yep.
And there's all kinds of people that have all kinds of dreams that what they like to create in their backyard oasis, and they're all different. That's the fun of the process. And so we just like to explore all the different things that people can look at. So you've given us a lot of great information that can help people understand your product, and hopefully some people reach out and contact you and figure things out. So
yeah, that'd be great. And I really appreciate the opportunity, and hopefully look forward to being able to work with you guys more. Because it is a two-way street. And like I said, we need strategic partners to help us get these projects done. So we're more than happy to provide referrals to other great companies that are doing work like this and willing to take on some really custom type projects. So appreciate making the connection, and this type of stuff is fun. So more than happy to do it again.
Well, your product is really cool. So I gotta say that. But yeah, thank you for coming on, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Well,
thank you guys.
Glad we worked the technology out and got it all figured out. Do you do trade shows or any of that type of thing?
Yeah. So not really in the pool or spa world, but more in the attraction side. So we attend the big one for us every year is IAAPA in Orlando. It's the main IAAPA Expo. So that's International Association of Amusement Parks and Attractions. It's in Orlando. There's one next week actually in Amsterdam. It's the European one. There's one in Asia. There's one in the Middle East. So we attend all those under the Whitewater banner. And so they have regional offices in Europe and Middle East and in China. So depending on where it is, we have different colleagues that will attend. But we do attend a commercial real estate show. That's FlowRider specifically, ICSC. It's in Vegas every year. And then we also attend a Parks and Recreation show, NRPA. So, and that'll, fluctuate, but usually it's more of the attractions, the amusement space versus pools and
Sure. Well,
because like Whitewater has a larger market base, the
right.
different
Yeah.
clients. FlowRider, it's smaller. So, we have what's called the standalone market too, which I never mentioned earlier. So that's clients that are looking to build a business with the attraction as the focal point.
Yeah.
Usually with an element of F&B and maybe some other entertainment. So we have other clients that maybe Whitewater wouldn't. And the residential buyer is, we're getting a lot of traction in the space. And so it is a growing market for us. So, we may tend, depending on if we see the value, there is typically some budget to explore new shows. So who knows?
Who knows? Well, we won't be going to Orlando, so but we
Fair.
appreciate the information, and if someone
Yeah.
shows up and checks you out there, that'd be great too, I'm sure. So
Yeah.
anyway, thanks again so much for coming on, and follow up with some questions probably for you that people might have as well if we think of anything else. But thanks
Yeah,
again.
great. No, I look forward to staying in touch, and thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah, have a good night.
All right.
See ya.
Yeah.